The good news, the BYU basketball program found a way to fend off the UC Riverside Highlanders. The bad news, they're one of the lesser teams BYU is going to face this year. Should that be concerning for the Cougars moving forward? We're talking about all of it on Postcast.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who like to call our everydayers right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Now, it is a postcast edition of the show, special edition coming to you on a Friday night live from the Marriott Center, and BYU gets a win beating the UC Riverside Highlanders. I have to keep thinking one. I say Riverside Community College, but it's UC Riverside. 86-80 is your final, and that scoreline should be a little bit concerning to you as a Cougar fan. I freely admit that. BYU struggled defensively in this game. That was a veteran squad in UC Riverside that came in and really pushed the tempo against BYU, ran their sets, and made life difficult for the Cougars. The most pressing thing I think from this BYU squad, and Kevin Young talked about it in his post-game comments, is that this is a team that's still, speaking of BYU, getting on the same page. And I asked him the question about UC Riverside and the fact that they had 4 of their 5 starting players, their top 3 scorers back. You can't replicate the experience factor early on in a season like UC Riverside had in this matchup. And Kevin Young acknowledged that fact. He said, yeah, we're still trying to get on the same page. It's a feeling out process we're going through here. So he acknowledged it was a stiff test from UC Riverside. His squad will be better for it, and I absolutely believe they will be better for it. They will be better prepared now to face opponents the likes of UC Riverside, obviously, and be ready to fend them off. Early on in this game, BYU looked like they were going to run away with it. I think it was like 13-2 at one point, and it was like, wow, they're really locking UC Riverside down. But once again, that experience factor that the Highlanders had, they just kept running their sets and believed, hey, they were going to generate shots. And as soon as the shots started falling, you really felt like this game tipped. Now, the good news, if you're a BYU fan looking from the BYU perspective, is yes, they struggled in this game, but they still got the win. I talk about it often on this podcast. You want, speaking of coaches, to win games, but have things you can harp on your guys about. There's a lot for BYU to fix in this game. They were attempted just 22 3-pointers in this one, and Kevin Young talked about that fact. He wanted to see more 3-pointers hoisted up, but more importantly, also the type of fact that some of those he would like to see guys pass up, take essentially a good shot, make a pass, make it a great shot, and reward their teammates a little bit more. BYU shot just 6 of 22. That's 27.3% from 3. That's not good enough. They've got to get more attempts up, and obviously convert on a better percentage of those. Also, BYU's free throw shooting, 14 of 26, 53.8%. And for large stretches of that second half, BYU was sub 50% on their free throws. They've got to clean that up. What saved BYU in this game was their inside presence. Foussenyi, Traore, and Keita absolutely feasted on UC Riverside, and really good to see those two have really good performances. I talked about on my postcast, looking back at the season opener, I was concerned about a guy like Dawson Baker, and for the first half of this game, it was more of the same. He had a 60-minute stretch where he was putrid, frankly, offensively. Bounces back nicely in the second half, had a big 3, really contributed in big moments as a secondary ball handler for BYU. I really like to see him bounce back. I think he had 8 points officially in this one. So all in all, a good night for BYU because they get the win. But in the case of a guy like Kevin Young, he's got plenty to look at his guys and say, hey, we need to work on this. We need to work on that as they get ready to host Queens it's not Queens, New York, Queens out of North Carolina. Bobby Horodiski, funny enough, if I'm not mistaken, on that staff at Queens. He'll be making his return to the Marriott Center next Wednesday night. Final thing for me is standouts of the night. I don't think we can say enough about how good Egor Demin is right now, folks. He is just absolutely crushing it. Leads BYU with points, 20 points, has 7 assists, 5 rebounds. He's just stuffing the stat sheet, just 2 turnovers, despite having a huge usage rate. He was 8 of 11 from the field overall. I really, really like what we're seeing from Egor Demin. He actually had a good night shooting the 3-pointer, 2 of 5 compared to the rest of his teammates. Cannon Catchings was 1 of 6, had 9 points, 4 of 11 from the field. Keita continues to be an absolute animal on the glass. He had a double-double with 14 points and 10 rebounds. His first double-double in a BYU uniform, and I will say this right now, that's not going to be his last. Foussenyi Traore, like I said, a great compliment off of Keita in his own right. The funny thing about this is you look at plus-minus. Keita, I think, was plus 16 in this game, while Foussenyi Traore was minus 11. that screams to me that the plus minus, it's never the end all be all stat that some people want to make it out to be. It's a good stat. Let me be very clear about that, but it's not the end all be all. And there's a lot more that can be improved on that side of things. So overall, a solid win for BYU as they move forward here, and they will be off until next Wednesday night when Queens comes to town. We'll have plenty of coverage for you guys coming up, and you probably hear the music in the background. So we'll wrap it up from the Marriott Center here as the cleaning crew gets to work here. But keep it locked here on Locked On Cougars. Tomorrow, big day, rivalry game. We'll have a postcast edition of that one late Saturday night, early Sunday mornings, probably more likely when it'll go up. We'll have plenty of coverage for you on that front, and we'll also have plenty of basketball coverage for you guys in the meantime as well. So once again, as always, thank you for making – I need to pass along one other note. I failed to note this. If I don't note it, I'm going to feel bad about this. One other thing I wanted to pass along about BYU in this game is that the interior presence, it's something BYU is going to absolutely have to utilize to back them up. 33-62 shooting overall for BYU. And I said the inside presence, it's absolutely something BYU is going to want to keep in their back pocket. And I really like how they went about things tonight. Plenty to work on once again, and obviously they will be looking to improve by leaps and bounds, quite frankly, as they move forward here. So, yeah, that's it. I just wanted to pass that along. The interior presence, that's something that BYU can utilize now. They can learn that, hey, we maybe get run off the three-point line. We can still attack teams with our interior presence. And guys like Keba, Keita, and Foussenyi Traore, I said at post-game, he said it's nice to have some extra touches and do work on the interior. So they're finding different ways to win so far, and that's a positive if you're a Cougar fan. So, all right, once again, big thank you as always for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. And as always, thank you for being everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.